I am theater ready, and that just means one thing, that you are coming with me. And today I'm taking you to the theater that I have never taken you before to, and that is the Old Vic. It is one of the most iconic institutions in London, and we're going to see the Groundhog Day, which is a musical based on a very popular movie from the 90s. Maybe you know it, maybe you're a fan, but regardless, it has received amazing reviews, 5-star across the board, and it is one of the big talks in the town for this summer in terms of theater community. So as always, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna show you around, take you on my journey, and then tell you some impressions after the show. So if you're looking for inspiration, what to see this summer in London, then make sure to subscribe and like, and also stay until the end of the video. The best way to get to the Old Vic is to hop on the underground and get off at Waterloo Station. And from there, you will be heading for a quick walk and the Old Vic will be literally in front of you. It's a beautiful theater with very friendly staff who can help you out, and there are bars on every level so you can enjoy a drink before heading to see the show. The theater has 3 levels and my ticket was all the way at the very top, so all the videos are filmed from that seat. We had a pretty good view because we were at the center, but we were quite high up. Audience loved the show, lots of genuine laughs and good vibes throughout it, and it received standing ovations. I need to put a disclaimer out there that I'm not particularly fond of this movie. I don't love it, but I hate it. I'm a little bit indifferent. I have seen it in group scenario environments once and I didn't really follow it that closely. It was more like, you know, something to watch in the background. So I kind of am familiar with the story, but I can't tell you that this is one of my favorite movies to put on a rainy day. But I appreciate that there are people who love this movie and love this story because it is fun and it is very mundane, but at the same time there's that heartwarming element to it which everyone adores. And I think that is the element of the musical that they got extremely right. This is the musical that you go and see and leave the theater feeling like you watch something fun. It is very low maintenance type of storyline, kind of you don't really need to think too hard or try to understand this or try to connect the dots. It is what it says on the tin. It is literally a musical based on the movie and they're very true to the events in the movie, but also they're adding these like nice little touches to it that make it a musical and not just like an adaptation of the movie. Elements that impressed me the most are very unexpected set solutions that happened on a few occasions where, for example, when there is a car racing scene, they use these kind of miniature cars and people who were kind of completely dressed in black, so it almost looked like they're puppeteers, and they were showing the scene of that chase of the car followed by the police in eagle eye view, which is really interesting to see because obviously they're still on stage and you know there are people moving these cars, but because of the lights and the way that everything was set up, it just looked really cool. And there were a few more moments where you were just impressed how simple yet effective the staging solutions were and how it really elevated the story. You know when you have the feeling like, oh, this is really nice. So that is kind of the predominant impression that I had of this musical. And there are these lovely scenes dotted around. From that perspective, it's also really interesting to see how they created this musical in a very skillful way to not make it boring, because this is literally a story about a day repeating itself over and over again. How not to make it a bit boring. Like it is its point that is repetitive and a little bit annoying, but I think they did so well with understanding when to break that repetition cycle. So they would do the same scene for like 3 times exactly in the same way, and then as soon as you start kind of thinking, are they going to do it again, they actually switch it up and introduce something new to the story that really advances characters' narrative and adds flavor to it. I think that that is probably where this musical had the biggest risk of becoming a bit boring. 10 out of 10 in terms of like how they translated the boring story to a really fun narrative on stage. This is the perfect musical to take your parents to, and actually someone behind me had their mum and dad with them. And it's unsurprising, this movie was released in 1993, so I think the audiences who are familiar with this movie are probably slightly older. If you're looking for something to take your parents to this summer, to treat them to a nice theater night out, this is probably the musical that they will really resonate with. The musical offers a perfect combination of new and old, because it really leans onto that nostalgia related to the movie and everything that that movie represents for the time that it's been released, but then also it adapts it to new audiences with like certain references that are a little bit newer or more relevant to the audiences that are watching the musical today. And also some songs that are introduced by especially female characters are really addressing the feelings that women nowadays face. And similarly to the main character, Phil, he's also kind of approaching it more from that perspective of a, 21st century man rather than, 30 years ago kind of man. But there is a nice balance between what they kept from the original movie and the sentiment from the movie and what they kind of added so it's suitable for the musical. So overall, I did feel theater feeling like I'm a little bit lighter, a little bit happier, amused by everything that I've seen. I think ultimately this is a very ordinary musical in a sense that it is talking about just an ordinary day and an ordinary life. I don't think this is my favorite musical I've ever seen, and it didn't impress me as much as Guys and Dolls did, so please go check that out if you're looking for something to blow your mind this summer. But it's definitely worth a watch. It's not on for much longer, so it ends by the end of August unless it gets extended, so now is your time to go and see it, depending on when you watch this. But yeah, tickets go for as low as £13, so you can probably find a fairly affordable ticket to go and see it and ultimately spend a beautiful night at the Old Vic, which is a beautiful theater. One thing to note is that the seats that we had were all the way up on the last level, kind of the top balcony, and the seats were pretty tight, so go check on seat plan before you book the ticket just so you're aware of the leg room. I'm 5'7", and actually the legroom was pretty tight and I couldn't really move much. So that's something to bear in mind so you don't get disappointed with your seat when you get there. If you're thinking about some other musicals to see in London and you're not sure what to watch, I think that this video should help you out with that quest.